Thank you, everybody, for joining us here today. We welcome you to the third session of Cognistx webinar series. And today we'll be talking about Square, which is a scalable question answering recommendation engine. And to kick things off today, I'd like to call upon Cognistx CEO Sanjay Chopra for the introduction. Sanjay?
Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Kaushik, and thank you to the entire team for putting this together. So I'll give a little brief overview of Cognistx. I can't believe it's been 7 years since we started the company. So we're a spin-off of Carnegie Mellon University. Our team size is about 30. When we started as a bespoke company, really solving problems for quite a few people, in various industries. But over the last 3 years, two of our products have really emerged. One of them we're going to be talking about today, that's Square. The other one is Data Quality Engine, and we already had a webinar about that. So we are growing, we are profitable, and we're actually super excited to share, the way we are solving the question answering problem, especially, with what's happening in the industry with ChatGPT and everything else out there. So this is a great time. I hope this session is very informative for all of you. Do put your questions on the chat on the right-hand side. We'll try to jump in and answer as we go along. So with that, Jack, do you want to move to the next slide? So I think this slide, Jag is telling that both Eric and I are old. So I've been doing AI and computer science for a really long time, 28, 30 years. In fact, the first company that brought me to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania was a company called Carnegie Group. And we were doing AI for the Department of Defense at Caterpillar before AI was hot and sexy. So right now, we are in the growth and sexy phase of AI. Back then, we were working with ADA and sort of, C++, but I've actually in the past also had sold a company to Google. I've been at IBM. Eric is much more impressive. I only have a couple of masters. Eric got his PhD in computer science from Carnegie Mellon. He is the director of the computational data science program. He was also one of the researchers behind IBM Watson. So for the last 10, 15 years, Eric and his students, lots of PhD students, have been focusing on question answering problems. So that's something that's very near and dear to our heart. So next slide, Jag. So I think this point versus me talking about it, Jag, would be awesome since you are the product manager to talk and give an overview of what problems we are solving with Square, how we see differentiation with ChatGPT, and take it from there. So over, back to you.
Sure. Thank you, Sanjay. So let me start with my introduction. As Sanjay mentioned, I'm a senior product manager at Cognistx, and Kaushik and I have been working on this product since a couple of years now. So with that, I would like to inform that, over the years, we have been working with multiple domains across different industries. And, while working on these complex problems and researching in this field, we have realized that finding the right information at the right time with the most easiest way possible is the key for many business drivers. And because not finding the information comes up with a very high cost of operations, like, hiring more resources, spending more time and looking for the information. So like what the main facts that motivated us to focus on Square was the inability to locate and retrieve the mission critical information. And due to multitude of resources available within a typical organization, it is very difficult to find the right information. So the lack of awareness and access to leads to serious squandering of time. So this what makes this all these issues makes the information difficult to use, difficult to discover, and it brings a lot of lack of trust there. So now I was just trying to make you understand why we actually went ahead and started building Square, and this was our motivation. Now that we've understood what we are trying to solve, I would like to focus that which area Square brings the most impact. So overall, we have this is from one of the white papers of IDC, which says that It brings the most importance of data discovery to operations, policy and legal compliance, risk reduction, and regulatory compliance. Now, why data discovery is so important in this field? These field is because the knowledge workers sometimes spend more than 3 hours a day to look for information. Clearly, all the technology advancements till now has not tackled this in the way that we want, and we are still looking for information which is already there instead of bringing using that information to analyze, bring impact to the business. So this is where AI jumps in and brings the value over here. And with Square, our goal is to bridge this gap to make information search very easy and accessible to anybody who's looking for information. Now, with our current clients in these domains, we were able to save 80% of their search time overall. So with that, now that we know that what we are trying to solve and for whom we are trying to solve, let me introduce what is Square in a very simple form. So it is an end-to-end platform that automates the manual searching of information within your corpus of documents and relevant web pages. So it has a very simple UI, as you can see on the right side. You can ask questions or write like a small phrase, and it shows you the most relevant answer with the context of the phrase or the question that you have asked. It also allows you to locate and understand your answers so that you can trust the answers before taking the call. So during our demo, we'll go through more details about what the features are and how it works, how scalable it is. Now, before we go to the exciting stuff of and making you understand, and explaining the question answering application, I would like to highlight 3 key features which differentiate Square from all the existing tools that is there in the market. So first one is contextual. So any questions asked and through Square or fed in Square, it prioritizes the context behind the question to rank and score a particular response, and then show the most relevant response as the top answer among the searches. So as a result, you will more than 90% of the time you will see the right answer as the first answer out of all. But it still shows you multiple more answers to see if there are any other answers available in all the documents that you have. Now, the second one is being flexible. Square is very flexible in understanding in kind of incorporating various formats, orientation. It could, the documents could have multiple columns, it could have tables, and Square is able to extract all the text, from these different orientations and formats and tables, and incorporate that text and data to the knowledge base from where the responses would be extracted. Third,
Jack, let me ask you a question here, if you don't mind. So what you're saying is, what makes Square really so special is its ability to understand the context behind the question. And it really doesn't matter what format the document is, whether it has multiple columns or tables or complex structures or comes from big blobs, it can find the answers for you. Is that the case?
Yes, you summarized exactly what I wanted to say.
Perfect.
All right. So the last one being scalable, which is very important to many business units. So Square is an it has an auto-scalable infrastructure with the capacity to parse millions of documents on a daily basis. And we have done that for a couple of clients to keep the knowledge base the most updated, right? Like if the knowledge is changing over the day, we have the capacity to keep Square knowledge base the most updated. So with that, I would like to call upon the senior data scientist Cognistx for Square to explain how question answering application works.
Already. So let me quickly share my screen. Can everyone see the screen?
I can see it.
Okay. So today I'm going to explain question answering applications. I'll be talking a little bit about how to get started with Square, and also what happens in Square. What are the different steps we take in Square? So before getting started, I just want to ask this question. So how many of you tried ChatGPT? Probably not everyone would have tried it, but you would have heard about ChatGPT recently. So post ChatGPT, everyone are interested about question answering applications. Uh, so what I'm going to do today is I'll be taking core components of any AI system, data, input and output, and I'll be doing classification of question answering applications in each important component. So with respect to data, question answering systems can be divided into open domain and closed domain. So in open domain question answering systems, user can ask questions from any topic. Interestingly, we use this every day. We use Google search every day. Uh, we also use Alexa, or we also use Siri to ask different questions. But let me ask Sanjay. Sanjay, what do you think of open domain question answering systems, and why it's still a challenging problem?
So, great question. Thank you, Kaushik. I was not expecting this, but this is good to show my perspective here. So, open domain is something like you said we use all the time. Sort of we use Google all the time. And what makes these problems complicated is, let's say, if I ask a question, what makes a cat happy? It's very hard to answer that question. And if the domain is all the websites that are out there, you have to go search for it, find the right information. That makes the problem very challenging to come up with any difficult, sort of even difficult or even easy question, and then find the right answer to it. On the other hand, for closed domain, sort of, where you have a given corporate entity, where you have a set of corpus of documents, and for corporations and organizations, this makes a lot more sense, is to focus on that particular set and then give the answer. The problem is slightly easier and better. I hope that's what you were looking for, Kaushik.
Definitely, Sanjay. And thanks also for introducing closed domain question answering systems. I also want to add an example. One of our legal tech customers use Square on contracts because all the questions are related to contracts. So they typically ask questions like, when does this contract expire, or what is the revenue share percentages in the contracts? So because all the questions are associated with contract, we can tune models so that they can achieve very high performance, unlike open domain question answering. But with that, I will go to next classification, which is static versus dynamic. So question answer systems, again with respect to input, which is a user query, can be divided into static and dynamic. In static, people know what they're actually searching for. A classic example can be something like PII detection, which is like personal identifiable information detection, where we know that we are looking for name or phone number or email or other sensitive information in it. On the completely opposite side, we have dynamic question answering systems where people are interested to explore documents, or people are interested to understand what is there in documents and web pages. So they create questions on fly, and these questions come in different formats. They come in the form of keywords, they come in the form of statements, or they sometimes even come in the form of complete question. So this is basically the question answering classification between with respect to data and input. Let's probably go to the last one, which is actually my favorite one, question answering systems with respect to output. So we do have again two categories here, extractive and generative. The reason why I say this category is favorite because our customers love extractive question answering. What extractive question answering do is they find the answer of user question in the documents. So they go through the exact location where you have answer for the question, instead of something like generative question answering, which generates answer. But again, let me ask Sanjay, what do you think about generative question answering, Sanjay?
I think generative is cool if I'm a researcher or if I'm a marketing person and I want to write a blog about some area that, hey, get it started for me. So I only have to tweak it a little bit, and ChatGPT is a great example of a generative model. But I think at least our feeling is in the corporate setting, in the setting of within organizations, people are looking for extractive output, sort of, hey, I've asked you a question, go through my set of documents and find the exact answer that meets my question. You don't want the system to make up stuff, sort of, from that perspective. So I think that's the big difference between extractive and generative from my perspective. Kaushik.
Completely agree, Sanjay. And as Sanjay was mentioning, OpenAI is a generative question answering. But apart from that, it's open domain because you ask from different topics. You ask questions across different topics, and people can create questions on fly. So it's a dynamic. Whereas, as we are talking in Square, we focus on closed domains. We closely work with companies we work with their a set of corpus of documents or URLs and tune models so that we get very high performance and also show you the exact location where the answer is present. So with that, I will go to the next slide, basically understanding how Square works. So it's a very simple 5-step process. The first step is collection. We collect data from different trusted sources. Obviously, we work with the domain experts. And we do have something called scalable web crawler in case if you have websites that need to be crawled. We also, apart from just collecting, we also have something called document intelligence product, which organize the collected unstructured data. So now we have collected the data. What's the next step? The next step is to extract data. So in real world, unstructured data is very messy. It comes in different formats. It has a lot of challenges. It might contain tables, it might contain form, it might contain handwritten text, or it might even contain multiple columns. So you not worry about anything. Our extractor takes care of all these edge cases and preserve the reading order of extraction. Okay, now we have data extracted from different sources. What's the next step? Next step is tune. We don't train models from scratch because we already work with companies and build our ready-to-go domain-specific models. So we use the data that we collected in step 1 and step 2 and further tune them so that they are customized to your use case. So the third step is tuning. Now we have data, now we have model. What is the next step? The next step is prediction. This is something very customizable. Some customers like to integrate to their internal systems like the predictions, or some like to see on a dashboard, and some wants to just generate an Excel report or a JSON report to verify how the results are coming. So we in this space we customize accordingly and deliver results to the customers. And the last step is monitor. Data change over time, the distribution of data change over time, and models might get deprecated. So we monitor the performance continuously and update the models. This is how Square works. And how to get started? Very simple. You can send us some of the documents or web pages that you are interested in and want to see how Square works, and also send us some of the questions. And you can send through email, but you can also send the location where these documents are present. And the step 2 is we will get back to you with the results, or you can also request for access so that we will display those results on the Square platform. All right. With that, I will jump to demo. So what we have today is a set of documents across different domains. And let's say all these documents are present on my drive, and probably I want to ask a question, something like, is DNA considered as personal data across all these documents? We see here the Google Drive is unable to find the exact answer for that question. I can make this little easy. So instead of asking the entire question, I will ask just keyword personal data. It has fetched multiple documents, but it will take forever for me to go through all the documents. So let me see. This is actually the relevant document where the answer is present. And if I try same question again, is DNA considered as a personal data? It's giving me 0 results. And if I just search with the simple keyword like personal data, it gives me 850 locations where this keyword is present in just one document. So it will take forever again for me to go through every place and understand where the relevant result is present. Instead, you can use Square and ask question, is DNA considered personal data? So here you can see it fetched the result, genetic data should be defined as personal data. So even though the exact keywords are not present, it understood that DNA is related to the genetic data and it retrieved the relevant result. We can also take other example we have a document from a Federal Reserve Bank. This is actually their policy document. And if I ask a question like what has been the impact of COVID-19 on low income neighborhood, it retrieves some interesting relevant results from the documents. And we can also go to the document and further read about the results and share it with others. So this is what Square does for your documents. But again, thanks for attending this session. We feel that it is useful, and we are open for questions if you have any.
You can also use the question answer feature where you can anonymously ask questions through that tool.
Looks like we have quite a few questions in chat.
Justin, you should jump in and answer some of those.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah, so I see Patricia saying, is it secured for data privacy? So that's a good question. We use AWS best practices in terms of security and compliance. I believe it actually can be secured as HIPAA compliant as well, if that's required. And so by keeping everything within their infrastructure, we make sure that the data never leaves those servers. We also have Rome asking, how flexible is your product to be integrated with internal tools? And so that's a great question because we actually already have clients and we are integrating with their internal systems already. So if you have an internal tool and maybe you want to ingest those answers or the output from our products into your internal system, or you want to do something similar to that, we can certainly work with you. We can provide you access to certain APIs to get that information, or we can allow you to download it directly to your system. I see the XML one was answered in chat. So yes, again, in the same way that we can ingest into any internal systems, we can very easily export in any file format that you need. We could also custom generate reports. So if you have maybe a form that's always pre-filled out with certain information, we could auto-generate that form. And so that's an additional level of accessibility that we can provide. Does anyone see any other questions?
So I have a few questions. Let's say for a different domain, like say healthcare domain versus healthcare versus financial, right? So the context of the keywords may change. In a SQL SQL query system, it might change the context again. What is in here in SQL queries versus in a financial domain or anything else, right? So is your model generalized right now, or you're expecting it to be more trained for different domains?
I can take that actually. So right now, well, when we start, we can start with a generalized model. However, if we know that we're going to be in one specific domain or another, say, for example, like the legal domain, we're actually going to further choose a fine-tuned model on that specific domain. And so that way, when you see question keywords like agreements, documents, easements, those kind of things are going to be much more contextual for a fine-tuned model on the legal domain. And then in addition to that, as we kind of use this product more, we essentially get results and we can also see what the correct answer of those predictions should have been. If the model maybe gave the correct answer third, but we really wanted it to be first, we can even further fine-tune these models on your specific data and get really good results.
So just in follow up on that, does your company also provide services for fine-tuning models for a particular domain?
Yeah, Kaushik, do you want to take that?
Yes, of course. So we do have something called Feast. It's a feedback analytical system. We do different kinds of fine-tuning when we collaborate with the domain experts and the use case. And as Justin was mentioning, we can definitely start with the base model, but we do also have domain-specific models which are ready to go. But we work with you and with the product called Feast and further tune them.
Great. And how does the licensing work with your product?
So licensing typically, Gaurav, the way we work is it would be like a software as a service. So we have a monthly fee for using our models and customizing that to your domain. Like you said, ask about whether it's financial services or healthcare. So we would sort of have a recurring SaaS fee as long as you're using the models and it's giving you great results. We extract small amount of fee from you per month.
Okay. And the last question, like, where do you see like this product growing into from what it is today?
Jack, do you want to take that? Do you want me to take that? Since you're the product manager.
You can take that. I can chime in.
Sure. So Gaurav, I think we are fortunate from a timing perspective. There's a lot of tailwinds behind this whole space of question and answering. So a few things that have happened over time. One is computation has become, pretty prevalent with AWS or Google Cloud platforms or other places. You can get lots of GPUs, lots of horsepower behind QA systems. So what that really has enabled is models to give great results relatively quickly, especially with OpenQA, and we've obviously seen that with ChatGPT. So where we see this is focusing on basically specific questions and domains for corporations, legal, compliance, airlines, and then being able to answer those questions very quickly. Because all the people sort of at the end of the day in our jobs, we have to do a lot of searching, we have to do a lot of finding. And if somebody can give me the answer relatively quickly to my questions, so that's the tool where we hopefully sort of, see this being very prevalent within corporations, within organizations to answer the questions and provide results to them.
Thanks, Sanjay, for giving the context. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So I have a question. The demo that we saw was answering questions on once you choose a document and then you ask questions on that. Can you ask a question across the documents?
Yes. So thanks, Ratnakar, for your question. You can ask questions across the document. As we showed, we have this tool called DIP. This will make sure documents are also organized in different categories. So you can ask across, or you can select a category and ask this question, and that takes care of all these questions. Yeah, all the different ways you want to ask the question.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
We also have a question from Jonathan asking, what is the support like from Square team? So we are constantly, you will have a point of contact at Square. Mostly I'll be the point of contact, and I'll be working with you to understand what is the requirement exactly, because in case you need any customizations, we do offer that, unless you want to just use Square in the format as we just demoed. And we will also be in for the time that you are engaging with us and subscribe to Square, we will have the support maintenance part going on along with this. So be it new document ingestion, or you are not happy with the kind of responses that you're getting for any reason, we'll look at that, and constantly there will be a feedback loop that we'll be working on with you. Kaushik, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think you pretty much covered. Yeah.
Perfect. And then one more question. Regarding the ingestion, are there any limitations? Like I'm specifically looking at like figures and formulas, because what we deal with is a lot of, we have a lot of well diagrams, we have a lot of formulas, figures. Is Square able to ingest these, spit out an answer if I'm asking a question?
It can. Justin, why don't you take I don't know if Ushu is on, but go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, so we're actually experimenting with lots of really cutting edge modeling techniques, including visual question answering techniques. And so it can answer really complex questions like, what is the text at the top of this diagram, or how many liters of water is in this table? And so we can process those kind of results in pretty much the exact same way that we would process a typical textual answer.
So let me add something to what Justin's also saying, Jonathan. So we've been working with, like Society of Automotive Engineers here in the US. And what we've done for them is being able to adjust all the standards, including diagrams, tables, figures, and then you can ask questions. So there sort of, obviously the domain was very specific, and precision was that was needed was very high. Because, if I am a design engineer for NASA or Boeing or Pratt& Whitney, and I want to look at a given part and see what composition it is or what the dimensions are, I need to be able to get a very specific answer. So in that case, we were able to scan their standard, extract that, and provide an interface via an API to be able to sort of give a very precise answer to them.
Okay, yeah, because for context, because I'm with the Canadian Standards Association, so similar to SAE, although SAE is a very sort of specific scope with their standards. With us, it's anywhere from like healthcare to nuclear. It's all over the place, right? So we have a massive reach. So that's why we're trying to look at this for that usage case, especially because that's why I was looking at considering what type of models you guys are using, because our formulas and figures go from, there's a plethora of different things, right? We can be dealing with infection control to sort of like HVAC equipment and sizing and stuff like that, all the way to sort of preheat temperatures for different grades of steel. So that's why, I mean, we have all these things in tables and figures. So curious, and not to, not selfishly brag, but it is a little nicer organized than the SAE formats, because we do have a standardized template that sort of addresses a few things that we've done quite a while back. So I'm just curious if things like that already exist in your predefined models, or is that something that we would have to sort of create from scratch?
So some of them already exist. So sort of legal domain, the SAE domain in terms of the automotive and aerospace standards. But I really like the use case that you're talking about, Jonathan. So what we can do is have healthcare specific standards, HVAC specific standards, and then even have sort of, standards that go across these domains. So sort of, to come up with the answers. And in fact, one thought process there, and this is sort of, where we would collaborate and work with you to see what the question answering needs are. If people are going to be specific to a given domain, train static and dynamic questioning models to that particular domain. But if you want to be able to go across domains, we can do that. We can even go a little bit crazy and have extractive models and then come up with answers sort of based on that. So all those things are possible from a technology perspective. But I think this is where people would see a lot of value being domain specific, teeing the system already with a lot of questions that people want to ask. Let's say for your healthcare standards or automotive standards or other standards. And if specifically, if you have documents that are ready and well defined across these domains or within a given domain, that makes the task of coming up with precise answers even better. Especially with our star team with Kaushik, Justin, Jag, and Ushue.
Yeah, I just want to also add, I don't know, we can announce, but we are coming up with this new blog where we define all these challenges that you have been already discussing. And we will have follow-up webinars on this, like because we have seen different edge cases that you are mentioning with our previous customers, but we can definitely work on those and show you the results. Yeah.
Wonderful.
So, Kaushik, why don't you take the next question to elaborate on static versus dynamic and why Square is better than ChatGPT in that regard?
Right. So static versus dynamic is nothing to do with ChatGPT here, probably. So ChatGPT is more of generative. Our focus is extractive, where we are trying to show you the exact location where the answer is present. But the main difference between static and dynamic is if you take, as I was mentioning, if you take a use case similar to PII detection, if you take something like due diligence use case where you know what information you need to verify in the documents, especially in the legal. So that's where static comes into the picture, because you have concrete set of questions to be worked on. Whereas dynamic, it is more of like exploring. You just come and search as a Google search, but for your own documents. I hope that answered. Yeah.
I think Sangeeta has a question.
Yeah, hi. So I just joined a little late. Like, thank you for the demo. So I was working in a similar space where I was thinking like to apply this kind of semantic search across a conversational AI domain. So where we have a corpus where it's exactly from the website. So for example, if I take United Bank as a banking domain, so the entire knowledge base is across the entire website. So when I have to scrape the entire website as a document store, then in that case there are certain relationships between the text. So a kind of normal text extract doesn't work in that case. Maybe like certain paragraphs is like very much related and hierarchical with respect to the heading. So in this case, like what would Squire be a good fit in this case? Where what kind of extraction would suit in this case?
Yeah, I can actually answer that. And so one thing that we do to kind of preserve those long-term dependencies across maybe web pages, or if say there are like abbreviations that we need to keep track of and things like that, we actually use knowledge graphs as part of our extraction techniques. And so that's one way for us to essentially guarantee that these links remain present whenever we're asking questions to these natural language models. And so if we identify that there is a relationship that maybe between two paragraphs or two headings on a page, we can actually preserve that in the knowledge graph. And then any further questions that are going to be answered can take that knowledge into account whenever they're actually generating an answer for you.
Okay then. Okay.
Justin,
Yeah.
you want to talk about the custom scraping tool that we were developing as part of the summer interns? Yeah.
Yeah, and so the other thing is that we also have a scraper that can pretty much directly integrate with this platform. And so if there is maybe like a website that you need to monitor for updates and you want to continually be able to ask questions on the most up-to-date version of that website, we can actually just scrape that website before every query or maybe every day or something like that. And then we can generate the answers on this updated version.
Got it. Sounds good. So I think all these like kind of worked on like pre-computed embeddings and everything. So what if like I have some kind of data where I have to maintain a long context? So for example, I have to search across the conversational logs that I already have. Then in that case, the kind of preserving the context is very important conversational AI that I was not able to achieve well across like different platforms. So in that case of like long context memory, like does Quire help in preserving the context, like for stateful kind of maintaining the statefulness?
Yeah, and I would say that's where the knowledge graph is going to come in handy, because it's essentially a way for us to permanently maintain some of that knowledge across many different natural language processing queries. And so the kind of problem that you're talking about is actually a really well-known problem in computer science. Even ChatGPT fails whenever you try to ask questions that are related to something you've asked a long, long time ago. And so that's why we kind of use some of these more advanced techniques under the hood in order to preserve that context.
Yeah.
So Sangeeta, a good way to think about it is to use the right data structures like trees or knowledge graphs or other things to preserve the context and sort of, learn from each of the answers and learn from the interactions between the system and the user from that side.
Got it. Then understood. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yep. So in fact, one more thing I did want to mention, since Igor is also here, I don't know if he's able to unmute himself and talk a little bit about this. But as we scrape documents, as we ingest documents from any domain, we actually have another tool which we call document intelligence that just doesn't look at the lexical part of a document, but also the visual aspect of the document. And so if there's any visual context, lexical context, or past context of the questions that might have, we can actually preserve all that to showcase and answer those things from that perspective.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah. Yeah.
So actually, just to quickly add on that, the Square and Document Intelligence platform, they are very nicely integrated on a scale that you can do a conditional information extraction, for instance, when a Document Intelligence platform is able to automatically understand what kind of document it's looking at, and based on this automatically determined type, it is able to actually select a different set of questions that it wants to automatically ask. So basically, with those two together, you can automate it even further.
Cool. Then thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Sure.
With that, I can highlight some of the questions that came on the messages and we have answered, if that is helpful for anybody else. So our lead time basically is like for a POC on a sample document within 48 hours, we try to kind of, show you as to how the documents would look with Square basically. So today, the demo you saw on like some sample documents, it will be your documents where we'll be showing some questions of your choice basically. But to start with the whole engagement and incorporate all your documents and get the dashboard professionally with you, that takes a couple of weeks, as Sanjay mentioned in the chat. And for any, if you like to contact or have any further questions or you want to understand this better, please feel free to contact me at the email address that Sanjay has posted over the chat. I am just reposting it in case you want to copy it and keep it with you. So, and there was one more question, I think Raminder asked about that if the responses come with a confidence score. So yes, all the responses come with a confidence score so that you understand that how confident is the model about this answer, so that it gives that human action required kind of an alert that, okay, this confidence is low if you want to go ahead and check it.
In fact, one thing I will add to that also, sort of, not only do we show a confidence score, we also link to the source document. So that way you can go back to the source document and find the exact information you were looking for. And that value add sort of, it gives confidence from a user perspective. Hey, this is what I was really looking for from that side.
And I would actually emphasize the confidence score as one of our biggest advantages over a tool like ChatGPT, because whenever it generates an answer, you're not really sure where it's pulling that information from, and you're not sure if it's confident, if it's like really confident, if it only kind of is making a guess. On our platform, you're able to see like, oh, this has a 95% confidence, and I quickly scanned the context, that one looks good, versus something that maybe only has 5% confidence, and you might want to go back and kind of double check.
All right, any other questions? Good one, Brian.
If you ask twice, it will change also. So best of the luck.
Any other questions, anybody? Once again, this is great. So thank you, everybody. And thank you, Justin, Kaushik, and Jag for putting this together. You guys were awesome. And Jag is available to answer any questions or have follow-ups. And we're super excited to be part of this domain. And thank you again for participating.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.